The Prison Boss Narcissist. Her intimate partner primary source victim speaks. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Previously, I've explained to you why an individual known as Cherie Spencer, who was recently imprisoned for the abuse of her husband, was a narcissist. I explained to you the variety of behaviours and manipulations, narcissistic indicators, that tell us that she's a narcissist and provides an opportunity to look at a situation where the abuser is female and the victim is male. Although greater prominence is given to male narcissists, particularly in situations of domestic violence, the number of narcissists is roughly evenly split between male and female. There are differences amongst the schools where there is a shift in the proportion, but overall, it's roughly equal. Many people think that there are far more male narcissists. That's simply because male narcissists tend to be the more obvious ones, whereas female narcissists can be a lot harder to spot because commonly they will utilize fake empathy, cognitive empathy, and therefore tend to fit in more readily. Here, we receive the perspective of her victim, which enables you to understand more about the narcissistic dynamic. It's taken from an interview from the Daily Mail from Rebecca Hardy. The headline is, "Even now, I can't explain why I didn't leave my high-powered wife who beat me black and blue for 20 years. British man, 46, reveals how he wore makeup to hide his bruises inflicted by prison reform boss wife during regular beatings she doled out." When Cherie Spencer, the mother of 3 little girls and a senior manager at the Ministry of Justice, was facing sentence for the worst case of controlling and coercive behaviour the judge in question had ever seen, her husband, the abused Richard, could only focus on a spot, on a piece of furniture, and stare at it to get through it. "I felt absolutely nothing the few times I glanced across at Cherie," says Richard. "I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel scared. I didn't have any emotion," he says, in this harrowing interview. "But I was hyper-conscious of how my family was reacting when the judge described the horrific things that she had done." To hear the judge use the same language Cherie used, the F word and the C word, the things she called me like bitch, and knowing my family were hearing those things was... He then struggles to find the words. There aren't any. "When I think about those memories, I don't feel associated to them. It's like they happened to someone else." Here he's showing his disassociation as a consequence of the abuse that he sustained. "I know it was me, but in my mind, I can't understand how I could have allowed that to happen." This, of course, is a common response from many victims, that they look back on the individual and think, was that me? I don't really realise that that was me. How did I let that happen? How did that occur to somebody such as me? Sometimes pride has been dented. How could I let somebody treat me that way? How could I have fallen for it? How could I find myself in such a situation? In other instances, there's shame. I can't believe that I didn't do anything. Why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I see what was happening? And of course, this is because the individual concerned invariably had no idea what it was they were dealing with. Invariably, that person thinks that something has gone wrong in the relationship, and of course it has, but what they think is that the relationship as it was at the beginning was genuine, that when things were good, in some instances amazing, that was a genuine relationship, and somehow something has gone wrong to catapult it into the awful abusive behaviours. And the victim believes that they can get back to that early stage. You can't. The only person that will allow you to return to that is the narcissist. Nothing that you can say or do will guarantee a return to that golden period. And indeed, you should never ever attempt to get it back, because as you realise what you're dealing with, you should be obeying the first golden rule of freedom, namely, once you know, you go, you get out and you stay out. But many people, such as Richard Spencer, when they find themselves the subject of such abusive behaviours, are unable to leave. The reason being is that they are affected by their addiction to the narcissist, which manifests in so many different ways, often believing that they've brought the violence and abusive behaviour on themselves, and they have to work hard in order to correct it. A misguided sense of commitment towards the person, believing that somehow they're broken, they need to be helped, and they can be helped, which of course, as you know, is not the case. In other instances, it may well be a fear of what might happen if they leave, or a fear of not having an income or a place to live. And of course, the presence of children weighs heavily on the mind of the abused victim, not wanting to leave them, feeling that they need to protect them, feeling that they have obligations in that respect to keep the family together. These aspects and many, many more are corrupted by emotional thinking, which causes the victim to stay in a position of paralysis. The manipulations, of course, of the narcissist, the push and the pull, suddenly making everything all right again, duping the victim into thinking everything's okay, so things are calm, there's no need to leave, only for it, of course, to go horribly wrong again. Then, of course, there's the instance of thinking, well, seeing as things were calmed down and got better again, I just need to remember what it was that I did that got it into that position and I can get it back again. That, of course, is incorrect. As I explained earlier, you don't cause it, the narcissist does, but so many victims experience the corrupting effect of their emotional thinking that causes them to remain in situ, thinking that they can get back to that golden period. Emotional thinking is the enemy within, and what it will do is it will seize on many different things in order to keep you interacting with the narcissist. And one of the chief ways of that is to keep you within an abusive relationship. Continuing with the article, it explains that this is the first time that Richard has relived his 20-year ordeal at the hands of his wife. It's hard to comprehend how anyone could have tolerated 2 decades of such living hell, during which he was subjected to daily beatings, manipulation, physical assault, lack of emotional empathy, and verbal attacks, manipulation, absence of emotional empathy, that left him cowering on the floor in the fetal position. Few could have imagined to look at Cherie, a senior project manager of HM Prison Probation Service, who boasted, to grandiosity, to friends of meetings with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, that this bewitchingly pretty blonde was capable of such despicable abuse. And that, of course, is how our kind managed to get away with it and fit in. Last week, she was sentenced to 4 years in prison at Hull Crown Court, after pleading guilty to coercive and controlling behaviour and 3 counts of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm. Her campaign of violence and intimidation is almost too shocking to catalogue. She spat in his face, belittlement, physical assault, hit him with whatever she had to hand, a bottle, a mobile phone, a TV remote control, physical assault, assertion of control, absence of emotional empathy. On one occasion, she defecated on the floor and forced him to clear it up. Absence of emotional empathy, belittlement. On another, she beat him with a wine bottle so hard it permanently disfigured his ear. Richard, 46, shared some of the videos of abuse which were captured on the security camera in the children's playroom. Cherie's uncontrolled fury is the most terrifying I've ever witnessed. Ignition of fury, heated fury. She threatens him with a knife, drags him to the floor, kicks him, punches him, get the fucking chicken on, get to the fucking shop, she screams. You will learn. He cowers, pleads with her to stop. Ordering around, sense of entitlement, absence of emotional empathy, manipulations. When officers from Humberside Police interviewed Richard at the family's 7-bedroom home in a leafy village near York, following Cherie's arrest in June 2021, the investigating officer was so disturbed by what she heard she had to leave the room. She was crying, Richard recalls. He weeps himself now. When the things that have happened to me upset someone else, I feel guilty, he explains, exhibiting his emotional empathy. I just feel that no normal person would have let that happen. And in a way, he's right, because most normal people would walk away at an earlier juncture than stay trapped within the abuse, for the reasons that I've explained. Richard is actually a thoroughly decent, intelligent man with a sort of logical brain that gained him a degree in computing at Leeds Metropolitan University and a position at BT in network design that soon saw him addressing global conferences as an expert in his field. As I've explained many times, however, intelligence is no defence when it comes to dealing with the narcissist, and, of course, emotional thinking overrides this. Yet at home, he was made to feel worthless. As difficult as he finds talking about it now, he is determined to speak out to help as many other people in a similar situation as I can, he says. I want as many people to read about my thoughts and feelings and think, that sounds like me, or that sounds like my partner, because this was so incremental. Once again, this demonstrates, of course, the empathic nature, the desire to heal and fix to help others, perhaps also evidencing part of his saviour trait in order to want to help people be spared from such a situation. We'll continue with the analysis of what Richard has to say as the victim of a narcissist, as it provides you with validation about your own circumstances, an excellent opportunity to break it down and explain various aspects of it in the next section of this video.